Hi, I'm Dennis Kirschbaum. This first poem is from the journal, and it's called Watermen, 1979. I went with my classmates to Smith Island in the Maryland Bay. In the traditional boat of the Watermen, who still plied the estuary, we plowed into the Chesapeake. George showed us how to tong with the wooden-handled implement he had learned to use 50 years ago. We dropped the long handles into the green water and worked them back and forth, opening and closing the metal rakes underwater. The spray and the March wind chapped our hands. I brought up a dozen shells and a boot. On the second attempt, I scored. A single stony oyster lay among the debris. George pulled it from the wreckage, checking its size with metal prongs set 3 inches apart. Legal. He pried it open with a shucker. The exposed animal in its shell passed before my comrades, who gazed at it with wonder and revulsion. The hand stopped in front of me. "Well, it's yours, isn't it?" his eyes asked, part invitation, part dare. I took it. The oyster moved palpably, beating, waiting in the remaining half of its home. They cheered as I lifted it to my lips. It was a kind of celebration in the way of this world. I sucked the salty mucus into my mouth and swallowed. It may be obvious from the proceeding that I didn't grow up following the Jewish dietary laws. For those following that complex system known as kosher or kashrut, oysters are definitely not part of the equation. Sometime in my mid-30s, however, I decided I wanted to start following the laws, and I learned how challenging it can be to dine in a new place when you have restrictive dietary requirements, especially on a business trip to the South. Vegetarians, celiacs, those allergic to nuts, and the friends and family of these folks will understand what I'm talking about, but for me it was a new experience. And although the vegetarian or person who is sensitive to a certain food can usually provide a simple rationale for swearing off, the explanation given in the Hebrew Bible for the list of delicacies that are treif or off-limits for observant Jews is at best murky. In fact, the only reason God gives for the prescribed lifestyle of culinary restraint comes from Leviticus 11:44. God simply states, "For I, the Lord, am your God. You shall sanctify yourselves and be holy, for I am holy." So this poem is called Holy. After I started observing the dietary laws, I traveled to a conference in Charleston where a stately catered lunch was served in the grandeur of the U.S. Custom House. As the waitress approached our table, I asked her if she could tell me about the soup. "Honey," she said, "the chef calls that every creeping thing chowder." I passed and chewed thoughtfully on an oyster cracker as my fellow diners slurped and moaned with delight. When the main course arrived, the waitress leaned toward me, liberating a small jade cross from where it lay nestled. It swayed like a tire swing over a limpid Carolina creek. "Sweetie, this bad boy right here," she whispered, nodding toward the plate she was setting down in front of a woman in a shiny blue dress. "While it splitteth the hoof, it does not cheweth the cud. It is unclean for you." She oinked discreetly in my ear, in case I had failed to catch her drift. "How about the green beans?" I asked, knowing that the aromatic brown sauce adorning them was almost certainly a lost cause. "Rabbi," she laughed, "they's about as treif as it gets." "Y'all go ahead," I said to my companions. "Please don't wait." She returned with a plate containing a huge mound of plain mashed potatoes. All eyes dropped away, pretending not to stare, as if I'd been disfigured in an accident, or had just wrapped tefillin on my arms and begun to daven. "Belinda, would you help yourself to a biscuit and pass the rest down?" the blue dress drawled. A colleague looked at my plate, and then at me. I reached for the pepper, busied myself with its application. He was wondering how, or perhaps if, to ask. Thank you.